Pop 1280 Museum on the Horizon album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest from Pop 1280, Brooklyn-based cyberpunk and noise rock band. And around the time of their debut album, The Horror, I got hyped up to these guys. I saw a little potential in them. Personally, for me, I thought the album was kind of average. I thought they didn't go that extra mile. But they did go that extra mile with their follow-up album, Imps of Perversion. This was a much more vast and gritty and visual album that I thought Pop 1280 was like really playing to their strengths on. For me, I felt like I was watching some really disgusting sci-fi horror cult classic, but you know, Pop 1280 was providing the soundtrack and it was really good. And their next album, Paradise, was this incredibly campy, completely over-the-top, ridiculous disaster piece of an album that I couldn't help but love. Like, it was so freaking fun. Now, their last album, Waystation, I mean, look at this. I mean, some of the fast-paced tracks on this album were just as fun as anything on their last few albums, but for me, the slower songs on this album really raised some red flags for me. I just thought they weren't playing to their strengths. Now, I've been very amped to chat about this new album, mostly because I thought the singles were really good, very synth-heavy, synth-driven, post-punk sounding Pop 1280. Yes, please, let's chat about it. This album starts off with its title track, Museum on the Horizon, and honestly, it's a pretty great intro. I love the campy synths, the campier vocals. If you are in on Pop 1280 and know their style, you're gonna love this. It just creeps along like some B-movie soundtrack. It is so over the top. And no, this isn't gonna be for everybody. Trust me, there's some much more noisier, energetic punk rock in this vein out there. But personally, I love getting lost in their wonderfully weird world. Noncompliant, on the other hand, it's much easier to take in. I love just how unapologetically post-punk and noise rock this is. This almost reminds me like of early Place to Bury Strangers or Cold Cave. My God, it's just so tormented, so dreary. It's so hopeless as well. It's totally them though. Now, to say that the band doesn't try some experiments on this album would actually be a complete lie. There's a lot of experiments on this album. Not Too Deep is one of the better ones here. This shows the band bringing in some more groove, something we see a lot of later on. But they bring that in to their usual style of over-the-top and campy, ridiculous vocals and performances. And I will say this also, it's not as noisy or as off the rails as some of their early stuff. We'll get to that later on because it gets a whole lot worse than this. But for now, I'm happy with this. And Brennschluss, honestly, this track is so good, it's the track that swayed me into reviewing this album. I think it's the best track here by far. There's a cinematic edge to this track that is so refreshing. Like, it is easily the most vast sounding track here. It is so bold. There is so much drama to this track. More so than I ever thought I would hear from these guys. Everything is right on the money. The pacing is to freaking die for. It's also incredibly haunting and even catchy in their own weird way. Now, the band does experiment a lot, and sadly, some of the later experiments don't really pan out that well, or as much as I hoped they would. Yeah, clearly we're not in Kansas anymore, or wherever the hell Pop 1280 was to begin with. Two Body Problem is just a track where I feel like they're trying too hard. It's hard to follow and very noisy, but not in like a fun way like their early stuff was. No, it's sloppy, like a cutting room floor kind of sound. And it just sounds like it takes forever, too. I mean, it's a 4-minute track, but it sounds like a 10-minute track. Mission Creep let me down as well. Look, I don't mind the icy synth grooves on this album. I actually like that a lot on later tracks. Why is everything so rigid, so incredibly stiff? I'm not into these vocals either, or this chorus. Right Hand Man as well. It's not for me. I feel like this track is so noisy and heady, but not in a fun way like it was on albums like Imps of Perversion. No, this just sounds, once again, like nobody treated this. This was just a kind of noisy jam session, not an exciting one either. Even the production on this track, compared to the rest of the album, it's just not cutting it. And like, this album really falls off quick in the end of the album with Force Majeure. Once again, I'm not opposed to all the synths on this track. I actually think here they're pretty great. It's easily the nicest thing about this track. Actually, I'm also lying because their super ridiculously campy vocals on this track are actually pretty likable. But outside that, why does this sound so flimsy? Like, I know some of y'all weren't into that cold KVP that dropped a couple of months ago. You know, I was, but like, if you guys think that was blatant early post-punk rip-off, check this out, because this is even more of a blatant rip-off. But while this album isn't perfect, it's a great reminder of who Pop 1280 are. They bring in a lot of synths on the rest of this album, on tracks like Human Factor. This is a real freaking groove of a tune, honestly. This is a great sound for them just as a whole. And while, no, it's not as nasty or grisly as anything on their early albums, my god, I can mess with this, man. This is snappy. And while it's not gritty and grimy, it's just as over the top. And honestly, I think Threads is one of the best deep cuts here. This is a great medium for their sound. It's got the big icy synths, but it also has the gnarliness of their early material. Yeah, this isn't a terrible project. They experiment a lot here, mostly with a lot more synths and a lot more of a post-punk sound compared to their noise rock beginnings, and that's fine. Just some of the experiments on this album also either A, come off super flimsy, or B, come off as rip-offs, and that's a little depressing, but still, feeling very light 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.